I want to welcome you all to this afternoon's event, Kriolas Poderozas, Afro-Descendant Feminisms in Capeverdean American Music and Life. This event takes its title from a recently published collection of essays by and for Cabo Verdean descendant women and centers conversations around these women as political actors and musical creatives. This event will start with a 1-hour panel bringing our two guests into dialogue. The conversation will think through the legacy of figures like Fox Point's very own Vicky Vieira, discuss the future of Cabo Verdean women as composers and instrumentalists as well as vocalists, and ponder music's role in women-led mutual aid and advocacy, and discuss what feminism looks like in Cabo Verdean America. Following this conversation, we'll have a brief 15-minute Q&A, so be thinking about questions that you are interested in asking our wonderful panelists. And then finally, we will have an interactive workshop for the last 45 minutes of the event involving the overlaps between Batuku and Capeverdean feminism, Kriola feminism.
Thank you. And now I will do the honors of introducing our two amazing guests for this evening. This panel's first guest is scholar, performer Candida Rose Baptista. Yes. Songwriter, educator, and entertainer within and beyond the East Coast Cape Verdean American community. Ms. Baptista's research centers on the Cape Verde U.S. musical connection and legacy, and her contribution to this volume included research on the women who have done and continue to maintain those transnational links. Ms. Baptista is also known for her work on the Cape Verdean jazz fusion, which she calls Cabo Jazz. We will facilitate conversation between Ms. Baptista and our second guest panelist, Dr. Aminah Fernandez-Pilgrim, a wonderful professor at UMass Boston as well as Berkeley College, and whose research includes Afro-Descent and Cape Verdean American women and feminisms as international conference that centers Cape Verdean American women, aptly called Poderosa, which translates to powerful women. Please welcome our two honored guests.
So to begin the conversation, we want to give each of you a chance just to speak about your relationship to the subject matter of this panel conversation. How did this book collection come to be, this Kriolas Poderozas collection of essays? How did each of you find your way into a conversation about Cabo Verdean women, and what does Kriola feminism mean to you?
Okay, well, first I want to rewind and ask us to give these two a big hand, our organizers, Ruby Erickson and Alexandra. So I want to say thank you to both of you and Candida for, working together on this event. And I want to say thank you to all of the leaders of CICD. And thank you to Spencer and everyone. Closer? Okay. All right. So those are a lot of questions, Ruby. But I'm gonna. But it's an honor to be here. It's an honor to be here with each of you in this space. Thank you to you as well for being here. I guess I will begin by talking about my own connection to Kriola feminism and Poderosa, the conference, which is what preceded this book that Ruby mentioned. And we'll have some books on display for anyone who isn't familiar with the book and wants to take a look at it. The book's also available for sale if you're interested on Amazon and the publisher website. So without taking up too much time, I will mention that I was born and raised in the South Shore of Massachusetts, near Cape Cod in Onset, Mass, which many of you probably know is a Cape Verdean enclave even until today. And I grew up with my grandmother, the original Poderosa in my life, who raised me. along with my mom. And I just grew up observing what she and other women in our community went through, and had a keen sense of the injustices that I observed, injustices and inequities that I observed, that seemed to be organized along gender lines. So from an early age, I was really curious about that. I went through, grade school, high school, and went on to college, and that's when I first started to study African American history and women's history, and to learn the vocabulary that includes words like feminism that helped me make sense of all of those things that I observed growing up. I also went on to graduate school, and I began to dig even deeper into the theories and the frameworks that would help me begin to explain and make sense of my upbringing and the lives of the women in my community and in my family. So somewhere in that journey, I recognized that I would become a feminist historian. And so what that means is that for me as a historian, feminism has been a tool and a lens through which I understand the stories that I seek to tell. Feminism as a tool also empowers me with the capacity to ask certain questions about gender in people's lives that might not be visible otherwise. So I studied primarily first through African American women's experiences in Black feminism. And that gave me a foundation to begin to understand the lives of Kriolas even better. Fast forward to, I think, 2015, I met my colleague Terza Lima Neves, who's in North Carolina, and who most of you know co-founded the Poderoza conference with me. And she and I, immediately connected on shared values and shared interests in Kriolas, and specifically in empowering Kriolas. And we also shared, a vision that later realized and came to life as the Poderoza Conference. So that is kind of a really short way of answering some of these initial questions. And what I would just add is that the book is an attempt to do a couple of different things. One, to make space for people in the community. So many people, including, I think, Lydia downstairs, we were just talking about, so many of us know that we have important stories to tell. And I see familiar faces in the audience of, elders and leaders in the community who have stories to tell. But those stories are not always documented and not always, published. So the book represents a bridge between university academics and community scholars and practitioners. And it's an attempt to, give Kriolas recognition in this moment, which is so important to do that. So I don't want to take up time from my sister here, but that's my response.
Thank you. Thank you, Aminah. That was, I'm always such in awe of this amazing woman right here.
Thank you.
So to answer some of the questions, how did I get started with being part of, the looking into women, feminism, music, and how it relates to women? I actually started all of this very late in my life. I was always a musician, I was always a singer, but I was in the corporate world. And then when I turned 40, I decided because of what was going on in the corporate world, I had to leave my job and decided to go back to school. And when I went back to school at UMass Dartmouth, I got into the jazz music program, but there was also a world music program that was part of that as well. And so in that world music program, I discovered, because there was this mix, there was world and jazz, I discovered people like Horace Silver, and then I got to listen to people like Cesaria and realize that I had world music within me. And that started this journey, this wanting to know more about what's the world music that I have within myself. Growing up in New Bedford and growing up in a Capeverdean community and having all these amazing people around me. And so I started to delve into all the research that I started to do had to do with the Capeverdean American musical connection in various forms. Fast forward to 2015. So I graduated in 2005. I'm doing all of this performing, going around the country and, meeting people like Spencer and going to places like Alaska and doing music, Capeverdean music. And then in 2015, I ended up deciding to go back to UMass Boston to go to school. I wanted to do an ethnomusicology program, but they didn't have it. So I ended up in what they call transnational cultural and community studies. And this is where I met this wonderful woman next to me. And she encouraged me to continue looking into all of the things. And she was actually the capstone, my capstone committee chairwoman. And so that course of study allowed me to continue to dig deep into my heritage and my culture, what the music means to me as a Capeverdean American woman, which is why I ended up calling my CD Cabo Americana, the Sum of Me. And so in 2015, I go back to school, and I'm working on my capstone project. And there was a section in it that I called Not Just for Men Anymore. Because of people like Cesaria, and now there's Maida, and there's Luda, and all these people that are starting to come up in the music, I want to know more about some of the women that came before them. Where were they? Where are they? And so that was a sort of a section in my booklet that I did. And then when Poderozas came around and they wanted to work on the book, she asked me if I would expand. And what I found was that there's not a lot of ways to find information about Capeverdean women in music. There's a lot of information about the men and what they've done, and they've done amazingly great things, but so have women, but you don't find it, you don't see it. And so the more I went into the research, the more I decided, okay, we need to talk more about the women and say their names. This is something that Dr. Pilgrim, Aminah, taught me, is saying the names and making sure that people know who all these people are. So that's a little bit of my story, I guess. Did I hit all the points?
You hit all the points.
Okay.
Just to follow up on this question, the introduction to this book is titled Nos Vez, Nos Vos. And so that means our time, our voice. And I would love to hear each of you talk a little bit about the importance of what that means to you, to have a book by, for, and about Cabo Verdean women, and also this question of, the standpoint epistemology as a part of Black feminism and by extension of Kriola feminism.
Well, I'm trying to think of where to begin with this. I think it's really, this work is so deeply personal. And if anyone here has taken courses in women's studies or in feminist studies, there's a phrase that's often repeated, which is that the personal is political, and vice versa. And I would add to that something that Black women's studies teaches us, which is that the personal and the professional are also inextricably intertwined. So when Terza and I were compiling this collection and thinking about who to include in this book, we were very intentional about choosing individuals who represented that intersection, right? People who clearly had a love and a passion for community, as well as a love and a compassion and a passion for the work that they do, whether it's food preparation. We have an essay in the book by Elizabeth Andrade, who is a chef and a nutritionist, whether it's HR and career, coaching. We have an essay written by my sister on that topic, whether it's ethnomusicology, as in my sister scholar right here. The subtitle, Nos Ves, Nos Vos, is a simple one, but it's a signal that this book represents a reclaiming. And it's, the timing of this book was very serendipitous. It was very fortunate because we're in a moment, or we had entered a moment in our country of a sort of a reawakening, right? A racial reckoning, as we know, as we've heard about, as well as a moment of reawakening around, gender equity and all other things that have to do with so-called DEI or REI and belonging. And so this book was right on time, although it's long overdue, if that makes sense. And it's funny that, Terza and I, when we were finishing this first edition, we thought that there could very easily be, part 2, part 3, part 4, because there's just so many stories that haven't even been included here, as much as there are, a lot. There's still so much more to be told. So that's my way of beginning to answer that question. I'll say more later, but go ahead, please. No, I didn't.
Yeah, and I just wanted to bring into this conversation, something that Candida has said to me a lot, which is this idea of the first voice perspective. I don't know if you want to say anything about that, but I think, that's this theme of voice, our our time, our voice, first voice. Yeah.
So again, I want to bring it back to my sister scholar here. While I was at UMass Boston, these are some of the things that I learned that I really didn't understand. Like, them, you know that it's important to be able to tell your own story, right? Because for so long, others have told our stories without our input necessarily.
It's okay.
So others have told our story sometimes without our input, and so for us to have this opportunity to be the first voice and to tell the story from our perspective, for especially, and I'm going to just say from a personal standpoint, for me to have the opportunity to go to Cabo Verde and interview people and talk to people and be able to relay those stories and relay those sentiments through the work that we're doing, I think it's really, it's extremely, extremely important. And I feel very honored to be able to be part of that. And, for, Aminah to ask me to give my thoughts about it. And of course, there's so many women who we know from day to day, and we've known from day to day in our lives, who we know deserve praise, deserve to be seen, deserve to be heard, and have not. If we can do that just a little bit, then it's worthwhile. Even if we can get just one person's name out there.
Mm-hmm.
In the introduction to Kriolas Poderozas, Dr. Pilgrim and Dr. Silver Lima Neves describe a Kriola feminist way of doing scholarship, saying, "We do not endorse the idea that academia and community are opposed. Rather, as feminists, we affirm that we are the community." Can each of you speak to the ways in which community infuses your academic work?
Sure. So on the cover of the book, on the cover of the Poderoza book, if anyone hasn't seen it, Terza and I honored our grandmothers. So the top image is my grandmother, who I already mentioned today, and the bottom photo is Terza's grandmother, who we were so blessed to have at every Poderoza conference. I think she was at every one. My grandmother is deceased, but she's with me every day. And so I start with them because, again, like I mentioned in my comments earlier, I don't think of community as something outside of myself. And I don't think that a lot of Kriolu and Kriolas think that way either. It's part of the culture that we come from, right? It's in our DNA. It's the way that I teach. It's the way that I write. It's the way that I move and exist in the world. So for me, it's something that I didn't even have to think about. What I will say, just to give a little bit of context, is that academia, the politics of university and college life is not very kind to people who exist in this way, right? And I can tell you stories, I won't bore you with that here, but I can tell you stories of people who rejected my work or criticized me for making the choices that I made. I had colleagues who literally wrote negative letters about my work saying, "Why is she studying Cape Verde? Capeverdeans are such a small community, it doesn't matter." They don't matter, right? Capeverdean stories don't matter. Or people who would say that my writing was a little bit too emotional or too personal, right? Too grounded in the community. And I had to push, I had to do it anyway. It was very hurtful, but I had to do it anyway because I had, one, a higher calling, but two, I had Ness's voice in my ear, right? And that mattered more to me, right? So I just share that with you because that is what's behind this question. And I think everyone in this room who shares Capeverdean heritage probably understands, why community is part of the work. I don't know if that Is it a good answer? But that's what I got.
I think that's the only answer. Really. I mean, for me, growing, again, as I mentioned earlier, growing up in New Bedford, it was all about community. And it just, even, and I hadn't been in academia, by the time I went back, went and got my master's, I was already in my mid-50s. So, community just always meant that to me. So to hear things like maybe you shouldn't doing it as much this way. I mean, because I did a lot of oral work. I did a lot of oral histories, and to hear like, well, that's not really the best way to go about it or whatever. I guess it didn't make sense to me. So thankfully I had Aminah in my ear saying, do what you have to do this, is because this is important to you. So because it's important to you and it's important to your community and it's important to show your community, then continue to do that. And that's what that's what I did. I owe her you can tell how much I
appreciate
how much
you,
I adore her, but
I appreciate you, but it's mutual, right? I think that we those of us who have the privilege of, being in academia, being a scholar, being an executive director, I think, part of the work that we do is to give back, right? We understand that a door has been opened for us, and so we are opening doors for others.
So just a follow-up, other ways in which this collection challenges academic norms exemplify in the vulnerability of Aminah's letter to her grandmother, which concludes the book. It's risky sharing this with you here, writing about the personal in this book. In this way is messy, and in many ways too human for academia. Yet this is what made Poderoza work, and this is the work it has done inside of me. Would you like to add anything in regards to that statement?
Thank you for reading that. I think I already touched on it a little bit, but I will just say that I think about my mother's words so many times, and my dad's words to me so many times when I started teaching, and probably before doing so many different things in the community. My parents have very much been mentors to me as well as my parents, and so I'll often call them and run ideas by them or tell them, oh, I'm so nervous or whatever, and they always say, just be yourself. Just be yourself. You stand on the shoulders of your ancestors, and they're with you, and just be yourself. And so that's what I tried to do when I wrote that letter. It was sort of a way of speaking truth to power, another familiar phrase that we hear, and just being defiant, thinking about all those people who had criticized me and who had told me that I couldn't do it. It was a way of me just doing it anyway. And knowing that this book would go out into the world and be published, it was a way of me saying thank you to my grandmother, who had always told me, when I was a little girl, to make sure I got as much education as I could, because she couldn't. And some people have heard me say that publicly. She was one of the generation of Capeverdeans who had to pick cranberries in the Cape, right? So she had to leave school in middle school to work to support her family, but she loved school. And so she told me, go, I couldn't do it, but you can. So go and get as much education as you can. So this letter was a way of me bringing her with me, right? And saying her name and giving her, just letting her live in academia alongside me and my work.
Well, this question is for both of you, but since the creation of Poderoza Conference and within its growth in the last few years, what great things have you both seen come from the conference, and in terms of academia, has it made any substantial positive change in that world as well?
I think so. This is all you. Go ahead.
Well, I think the fact that it's centered around Cape Verdean and Cape Verdean American women, I mean, I think that's a huge thing just in itself. And to be able to, you know, I remember, I don't remember which year it was, 2016? No, I'm sorry, no, 2020. Just before COVID, 2020, just before COVID, I brought my niece along with me to the conference, and she did not know all of the amazing things that all of these women. There were women who are getting honored, and there are women that, you know, we're networking, and she was just really in awe, and just didn't know. So just to bring all of this beauty and positivity and resilience to another generation, and to see it, just to see it blossom, it's just a beautiful thing.
Being very humble. So one of the things that the Poderozas Conference has done is it has inspired other conferences. It has inspired a lot of different actions, I think, on the part of Kriolas. And I don't think that the Poderozas Conference can take full credit, because Kriolas do what they do, right? We're doers. And makers and authors and moms and grandmas and everything all at once. But I do think that it's been a springboard, and I'm so proud of Candida for taking that platform to another level for her own work. So you're gonna get a treat when we do the workshop, but she has since published her book, so I think we should give her a hand for that.
So what I will say to that is the fact that I was able to I have a chapter in the beautiful Kriolas Poderozas book. Yes, it was a springboard for me to continue working on the research that I had already done, because, like I said earlier, not just for men anymore was just a section of my original booklet that I did in 2017. And so to say, okay, it's time for me to take that chapter and make the rest of the booklet available as well to people who might want to know more about the work that I was able to do. So I say thank you to Poderozas, but it's called Cabo Americanos, the Sum of Us, exploring the Cabo Verde, exploring the Cabo Verde United States musical connection and legacy. And there's lots of people, some you may know, some you may not know. And I'm hoping and praying that it's going to be a springboard, as you said, a springboard to a more expanded work, as I maybe do should I say it out loud? Possibly do my PhD one of these days. I'm putting it out there in the universe. You all heard me say it. So by the end of the year, if I haven't done the application yet, you can all write to me and say, make sure you put that application.
I'll just add a couple of other things, and I'm sorry for time. I know we're running short on time. In terms of academia, again, I think it's important to note, and this goes back to Ruby's question about first voice scholarship. Poderoza and the book and other publications that have, been published since then have laid the foundation for what we can call Capeverdean women's studies or Cabo Verdean women's studies, right? We literally put into the world the theory of Kriola feminism, so that now if anyone wants to write about the unique positionalities and identities of Cabo Verdean women, they can use that language, right? So we literally gave birth to that term. And then by including the co-authors that we chose for this collection, Terza and I, have been almost like midwives. We've created authors, right? All of these people who maybe never thought of themselves as published authors, they can all say they are published authors because they are in this book. So those are some of the specific things that the conference and the book in particular have done. And I want to also, just say as an invitation to everyone in this room, if you feel that you have that story to tell, or you want to, or you have a book inside of you, then you should do it, right? It would have been easy for Terza or I to tell these people's stories as writers, as professors, but we both agreed that believing in first voice scholarship, no one can tell your story better than you. And thanks to the moment that we're in with technology and social media and self-publishing, there's multiple ways for you to actually do that. So if anybody is interested in that, we can talk later on.
Wonderful. So I wanted to get a little bit into the music question and the role of women, Cabo Verdean women, in music. So Candida, your chapter speaks to the influence of Cabo Verdean women and Cabo Verdean American women in maintaining the vibrancy of the Cabo Verdean musical tradition, even in the diaspora context. So I'd love for you to just speak a little bit about who these women were and some of their accomplishments.
Yes, thank you. So the first person I want to sort of lift and continue to lift is Miss Vicky Vieira. Those of us who are from New Bedford, well, Providence also, and the New Bedford area will know the name. She is the aunt of the very famous Tavares brothers, or Tavares, or Tavares. But she almost single-handedly, as a Cabo Verdean American woman, brought Cape Verdean music throughout New England and across the country in late 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. She was in several different Cape Verdean bands, and the songs that she sang, were the songs from Cabo Verde, and she made them to be household names for those people who were going to different places and listening to Cabo Verdean music. She sang mainly Marna and Coladera, and that's kind of the music that I sort of grew up with. And I almost feel as she was coming to towards the end of her life, I almost feel that she passed that torch on to me. I'm gonna just she has one particular song called Amor de Mai that I adopted as a song that I wanted to sing, is in my first CD, and I was able to sing that song at her funeral, and that was such an honor to be able to do that. So she represented, Cape Verdean music in 1995 at the Folklife Festival in Washington. So I'm glad that, she's finally getting the flowers maybe that she should have gotten when she was alive. But we're going to talk a little later about Nyanasia Gomi, who was the queen mother of Fanason and Batuk. Tete Alinho, who I got to interview when I was in Cabo Verde. I knew her as a vocalist. I didn't realize that she was also a composer. I didn't know that, she was sort of the one of the lead singers of the group Sementera, right? And, she has done so much, but I didn't know all of this about her. Even when I interviewed her, she didn't tell me about all of the things that she had done. It was like I had to research her to find out. And there's so many others. Of course, Selena Pereira, God rest her soul, who we lost not too long ago, who has done also so much for Cape Verdean music, not only in Cabo Verde, also in Portugal and here as well. So there's too many to name. And we try, we're trying, but there's just so many, and I'm hoping to continue the work of bringing their accomplishments to the light.
Thank you. Aminah, you've been active in hip hop studies. I'd love to hear you speak about hip hop sound, politics, and women. This can involve your scholarship or your own sonic practice.
Thank you for the question. So some people are surprised when they hear about this other side of me. And no, I'm not about to rap. So, but I grew up on hip hop. I think a lot of Cabo Verdean Americans grew up, listening to hip hop. It's a soundtrack of part of our childhood and our lives, along with our other traditional, forms of Cabo Verdean music, or in my home, reggae and soca, because on my father's side, I'm Caribbean. I'm from Barbados. And hip hop has always spoken to me because it is a blend of all of the sounds of the African diaspora. And hip hop is a diaspora tradition, from the start. The founders or the creators of hip hop are, immigrants from Barbados, from Jamaica, from Puerto Rico, Brazil, Cuba. So it has all of those rhythms in it. And it also has all of the classic markers of African music traditions, such as call and response, which is what Batuku is about, that we're gonna play and experience in the workshop. So I think that the way that my parents raised me to be very grounded in African diaspora history and culture, it was probably natural for me to gravitate towards hip hop, even though when I was a kid, they didn't like that so much. But I've always been fascinated by the music as a storytelling platform. And I'm also keenly aware as an educator that hip hop is the voice of our youth. And so in my teaching, hip hop has helped me connect with my students. And now I have the honor of being the first professor hired in Berkeley Africana Studies Department, where I get to teach hip hop. So I teach about it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I teach, mostly students who are not of African descent, but the students love hip hop, and we get to learn about Black history through the genre. So that's my answer.
So to just wrap up this conversation and kind of lead into the Q&A portion of the event and then eventually into the workshop, I just wanted to, offer a quote from the introduction to Kriolas Poderozas. Dr. Pilgrim, you write with Dr. Silva Libaneves that, quote, Batuk, being largely women-led, offers us a powerful metaphor of Kriolas as keepers of the history, culture, and traditions of resistance of Cabo Verde and its people worldwide. So with that, I will open up the floor to any questions, and anyone can come up to this microphone over here and ask your questions for our wonderful panelists here.
No questions?
Okay. Thank you.
This question is directed towards Candida. Dr. Aminah, I heard from you that your inspiration was your grandmother. I also had a wonderful grandmother too that I didn't get to know too much because she came to this country, didn't really want to be here, and she went back to Cape Verde. But I always say she's my inspiration, and I just want to tell something very brief. Women are very strong, and my grandmother's from San Nicolau. So when she was pregnant one day, my mother told me this story. She walked to Vila. She was selling like fish. She sold it. She was like 9 months pregnant. When she came back, my mother was running to her and said, "Where's your belly?" And was going crazy. "Where's the baby? What happened?" She had her on her back. So she walked to Vila, and people, I don't know if you know how San Nicolau, there's all mountains, had the baby, wrapped her back up, and walked back and continued working. So I realized that your grandmother was your inspiration. Like my grandmother gives me, besides my faith in God, my grandmother gives me my faith and my strength. But Candida, who is a famous woman to you? Anybody that inspired you as well? I know the singers like Cesaria, but is anybody else that inspired you?
Yeah, you're gonna bring tears to my eyes.
I didn't mean to.
It's okay.
You know I adore you.
If it doesn't happen once during an interview, during a panel, it's I haven't done my job, I guess. There are many, because the spirit of my mother is always with me, but I lost her when I was only 14 months old. So, when I think of people like Sebastiana, who helped my dad to raise me, we talk about community, right? When I think about my Auntie Millie and my Auntie Julia and my Auntie Joaquina, who were on the front line of New Bedford's, independence struggles. They were the keepers of, the Capeverdean vets. They were the people who taught me to really have pride in who I am as a Capeverdean American woman. I also have to mention my stepmother, Isilda, because when she came from Brava when I was only 9, if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be speaking Creole the way I do, and it wouldn't have given me that springboard to want to continue now at where I am, to continue wanting to know more about my heritage, because she was right there with me, and she, we would write letters back and forth to Cabo Verde and all of that. And even though I didn't go to Cabo Verde until I was in my mid-40s, she helped me with what I call in my book reverse saudade. So there's this saudade for those of us who have never been there, that it's this connection to this place that you've never been. And so all of these women that were in my life helped to solidify that love for a place that I never been. And that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here today.
More questions, please. Do not be shy. Yes.
I don't think this goes up, but Candida, you gave 4 names. I don't hear very well, and I know it's difficult to find history, especially the female singers, and it's very difficult to find history in letters, and very little of the old music is recorded. But I couldn't catch the 4 names that you said them so fast. I couldn't catch them.
Oh, so the lady musicians that I spoke about? Miss Vicky Vieira, Nyanasia Gomi, Selena Pereira, and who else did I say? Tete Alinho. And if you read our books, they're in. They're in the books. But also, too, I'll also say this: a lot of the research that I was doing, I was able to find lots of information in a book. It's by a woman named Glaucia Nogueira, and she has a book that's basically the Cape Verdean musician, the dictionary of Cape Verdean musicians. So if you, all those people are in that book as well.
Yeah.
Glaucia Nogueira. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Dicionário de Personagens. Yeah, and
Yes,
then there's also a project that that she's been doing, and Gino Barbosa has also been involved in this. It's a virtual museum, Cabo Verde Ia Musica virtual museum, and it's mostly in Portuguese right now, but they are getting it, working on getting it translated into English as well. So.
And so all
Feel
those
free to look
names
them up.
can be found on the museum as well.
Yeah, if you want to see that museum, it's through Bridgewater State. So if you go to Bridgewater State Pedro Pires Institute for Capeverdean Studies, you should be able to find it.
And that's online. And the other book that you mentioned, is that still in print, or is that
The books are in print, yes.
Hello. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for setting this up. You mentioned a concept called saudade. I know zero Creole, so my accent's probably terrible. But you mentioned that, and the idea that like that's a connection to back home. I'm just wondering. I'm just curious about, because it seems like you guys are very, very the Cape Verdean identity is very, very salient to you. But you weren't born there. So I'm just curious about that linkage and like that first experience going to Cape Verde, how powerful that was. I just want to hear that story.
So, well, as I mentioned, I don't know if I can say I coined the phrase reverse saudade, but Cape Verdeans, just in general, because of this longing, we've had to leave for centuries. We've had to leave our place of birth for whatever those reasons are, and lots of times when you've left that place, a lot of these people are never going back, and they're never seeing that place again. They're never seeing those people again. And so this saudade is this longing. There's no real definition for it, right? But if you want to feel it, it's this longing for this place that you have left, that you may never ever see again. So it's not like missing somebody, like, okay, I'll see you next week. I'll miss you while you're gone, but I'll see you next week. It's not that kind of a missing. It's this pull, this angst that we feel. And so when, Cesaria Évora sang the song Saudade, that's sort of why it sort of connects everybody. Everybody almost feels like it's almost like a third anthem, because it captures that longing to be somewhere. And for those of us who, a lot of the people that I researched in this book, many of them never went back to Cabo Verde, or not went back. Some of them were born here and never even been there. But yet, that feeling, like that you mentioned, that feeling of connection still drew them to want to sing about that country. They learned because of their ancestors, right? Because of the people that came before them. They learned about what was going on in Cabo Verde through their parents, and it continued to give them that desire to want to, if they couldn't be there, to at least tell people about this place that is so near and dear, and the people that are so resilient and so beautiful. So I don't know, I hope did that answer your question?
The second question is your experience for the first time you went.
Oh my goodness, okay. So the first time I went, it was in 2006, and I was going as a backup vocalist for Tiny Tavares. So he was our panelist last year.
You were at the last panel.
Yes, you were at the last panel. You met Tiny Tavares. And so I had the opportunity to go to Cabo Verde for the first time. And the thing I say to everybody is, oh, here we go again. I could feel, even before the plane hit the ground, as the landing gear was starting to lower, I felt this stream of emotion. I could feel, and it was a feel like I knew I had gotten home. It was this, I can't even describe what it was. I felt every single one of my ancestors in that moment. And when the plane hit, I was a basket case because because I just knew that I needed to make this trip to come home. And for those of you who know me and know some of my music, there's a song that I wrote the lyrics for. It's called Cabo Verde dia, which means Cape Verde one day. And in the song, I talk about, yes, I was born here in the United States, but my blood and my soul is connected to Cabo Verde. And I talk about the fact that my mother was born in my mother's family was Santo Antão, and my father's family from Jabrava. And one day with faith, I am going to make it to Cabo Verde. And so that song, I guess, kind of became a prayer. And so that prayer was answered when I finally got there. And it was like no other experience that I could ever. And the one thing I say to those of you who are Cape Verdean American who have not been to Cabo Verde yet, you have to go. If you have not been, you have to go.
Aminah, do you have any further? Oh, there's another. Okay. Take another question.
Hi, thank you for coming in. I've been enjoying this a lot. I just wanted to ask if you could interview anyone alive or somebody that you've had ample research on, who would it be? I think that would be very interesting. Thanks.
Can you repeat that one more time?
Oh. Okay. Maybe this way. I said if you could interview anyone alive or anyone that you've had ample research on, who would that be?
Someone alive? Or someone you've done a lot of research on.
I don't know. So I think in doing some of the research that I've done, I wish that I had the opportunity to interview Nyanasi Gomi. Like I would have loved to have really learned from her. I guess that would be one person. Who else? I don't know.
It's a struggle for me to think of someone living, but my first thought whenever I hear that question is my own grandmother, especially because when she was alive, I wasn't fluent in Creole at that time, and now that I am, I would love to. That would be my ultimate moment, just to. Contaparte, Quell, and just she was fresh. She liked to make jokes, and I would just love to be able to do that with her and ask her questions. But I can't think of anyone else at this moment.
Beautiful. So if we don't have any more questions at the moment, and you can always speak with our beautiful, wonderful panelists after the event at the reception. We're going to move into the workshop portion of the event. So we'll let our folks take a couple of minutes to get set up. But
I just want to say one thing
Okay.
before we move on. As we are sitting here and we're talking about saying the names and acknowledging these amazing women that we've researched, I want to just call out one beautiful. I just want to call out one beautiful woman who has also been out here singing and giving of herself and bringing her talent. And I just wanted to say thank you to Miss Bia for all the work that you do. Yes, wave, just let people know who you are. She's a beautiful, beautiful singer, and she also has been upholding the traditions of Cape Verdean music, and it would be remiss for me to not acknowledge one of our elders and stalwart people in our community. So thank you.
And in lieu of conversation of community, Bia has been a part of CACD and this community since the very beginning of CACD, and still till this day, supporting, volunteering. She is the person who I contact whenever we need to invite folks, and she has a very good light in the community. So I just wanted to also bring that up because we're talking about community here. So.
Hi, everybody. Again. So we're going to just try to do a little bit of a workshop. And in the interest of time, because I know a little bit behind schedule here. We're going to probably just kind of just go through the sort of the beginnings of this and then get right to the meat and potatoes of this whole thing. So what I wanted to just talk about real quick, so you see, this. We talked a little bit about my program booklet and the book that's out, and a lot of what I talk about and what I do is based on these books. So we can go. And so of course you saw. Oh, wait, one more. I want people to see the book so they'll know about Kriolas Poderozas and how beautiful of a book that it is. You can go ahead. I wanted to talk for a moment before about this is the quote that I used to frame my work. And standing on sort of the shoulders of all of those people that came before us, standing on the shoulders of those teachers and those mentors, and that upheld their traditions so that we can continue to uphold ours. So, okay, we can go. I'm doing this quickly because I wanted to get to this stuff. So there's lots of different kinds of Capeverdean music. Now, first of all, does everybody know where Cape Verde is? I'm hoping that everybody in this room knows where Cape Verde is, yes? Okay, so I didn't have to do that part of it. Okay, good. All right. So, of course, we have what we all know and is dear to our hearts at the Marna. We've got the Coladeira. So, of course, the Marna is this sort of slow, heartfelt, talks about lots of different topics of love, but mainly of separation. So you hear a lot of that in our Marna. Coladeira, of course, is a sort of an upbeat, up-tempo. You get to dance. You do a little two-step, which is kind of what I learned. I'm going to skip over Finançam for a moment. Batuk, Talaya Bashu, which comes from Fogo. Funaná, which comes from Santiago. Tabanca. What island is Tabanca mainly? Santiago as well. All right, Santiago. I want to just make sure. We've got Cola San Jean, and we have the Mazurka, which these are sort of all traditional. These are all kind of considered traditional Capeverdean music. And then, of course, we have contemporary. Some of this is always up for debate, but I'm going to put it up there anyway. Cabo Zouk, of course, which is Caribbean influence, but of course we have put our stamp on it as well. Passado or Kizomba, which is Angolan or Latin influenced as well. And then, of course, as Aminah talked about, Capeverdean hip hop, which is very much American influenced, but of course African influences as well. So, but today we wanted to talk mainly about, okay, we're going to go through this. So, of course, we all know Cesaria, we know Saudade, and we know the longing. We talked about the longing. Of course, you can't have any musical program without mentioning Cesaria, right? So, we give honor where honor is due. As I mentioned earlier, Tete Alinho, who does many forms of not only Marna and Coladeira and all this beautiful music that she does. As I mentioned earlier, Miss Vicky Vieira, giving her all the props that she deserves. Lead vocalist for Creole Sextets, for the Creole Sextets, and other Capeverdean bands. And so the people that we just looked at were mainly, I would say, more Marna Coladeira based, right? But what I ended up, as I started doing my research more and more, I really, for whatever reasons, I don't even know why, I really connected with Batuk. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it's the African piece inside of me. I don't know what it is, but even when I was at UMass Dartmouth, and we were doing the African drum and dance classes, and I started learning more about the batuk, I don't know, there was just something about it that really called to my soul. And because we're here talking about women and women feminism and talking about, yes, come up, please. Yes, you. This is our presentation. She went off to get interviewed for a second, so we had to. And so, as I started learning more about the batucadeiras and what they do and what they did and how they were the culture keepers as we started with the independence struggle. I mean, they were the culture keepers. They were the ones that were like at the front lines of the musical front lines of the struggle. And as I started looking into some of these people, of course, Nyanasi Gomi, her name was always, every time I looked up Batuk, was her name that came up. And as I started talking to people who know about Batuk, of course, it was her name that always came up. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to talk a little bit about Batuk, what it is, why it is. And as you see here, we've got some instruments. I've got some stuff to. I've got some stuff to put around our hips. We'll talk about that in a second, and we're going to do a little bit. We'll do a little bit of dancing, yes. So, yeah. So why don't we go to? We're gonna show a quick vid. Okay. So we're gonna talk about the chabata. This is called a chabata. And this is where this is where the beat comes from, but we're going to do that in 2 seconds because I want you to hear something. Play a little bit of that for me, please. So what I want you to do is listen to the rhythm. There are elements in Batuk. What she's doing right now, we would call Finação. Finação she is talking about her experience, or the experience of the village, or the experiences of people around her. In this case, she's talking about her donkey. She's talking about how much work she does, and her guru helps her with being able to do some of her work. So that's what a lot of what this particular video is about, and this particular song is about. So you see, as we go on, you saw many women, and a couple of guys in there too, but there were many women that you saw doing this rhythm. And as they're doing the rhythm, they're doing what's considered call and response. So she's speaking, she's singing her story, and they're repeating a particular phrase, which is the call and response piece that we know that comes particularly from our African roots. So, can you stop it for a second? Oh, okay, well, don't go to that one just yet. All right. So, yes, so, I'm going to ask for a few of you to come up. How much attention did you pay to the rhythms that they were playing in the background? Yeah. Well, stop the talking. Anybody else? So the rhythm of Batuk, it's many rhythms, right? What do we call that? Polyrhythms, right? You want to say anything about any of this? Want a mic?
No.
I don't want to say too much because I know we're getting over our time, but I'll just say a couple of things. One is that I think we should consider this tradition in the context of so many other African traditions, where even though some of our traditional instruments like the drum were taken away, we resisted that. So in Cape Verde, we recreated it with the chabata. In Trinidad, if you've ever been to the Caribbean, in Trinidad, they created the steel pan, right? There's so many traditions all over, the world, but in Cabo Verde, this is such an important one to represent our resistance, nos resistência de, opressão, nos luta e poder de mulher. Para na Batuque, mulher pode ser poderosa própria, na conta história, na controla música, ritmo. That's what I would say.
Okay. So there's also another piece, another element. So we've got the chabata, and there's a place within the dance where they'll say "ay chabata." That's when they start really they'll start really getting intense. And then there's another piece that says dakutorno, where they get really intense with this rhythm. Now, what I want to do is anybody else? Come up, come up. Siéntate. Por favor. ¿Quién llamas?
Nana, move it. Nana, Bob.
Come on, Sandy.
All right, Sandy.
Margaret, you want to try?
Really?
We can get a guy in there. So typically, wait, come away. Here you go, Sandra. Okay. So, and in a minute, I'm going to be asking for some ladies to come and help me up here. Uh-huh. Where's Ineda? Where's Ineda? All right. Tem pão, só por favor. I know. That's why she's not escaping me. Okay. So this is what I'd like for everybody to do. We're gonna try this polyrhythm, right? So what you may see is, I'll use my djembe since that's what they use sometimes. Because if you look at the shape of the chabata and you look at the shapes of the chabata, this is an African drum called the djembe, right? And so because these drums were taken away, what did they do? They created a way to either get the sound and even the shape, right? So okay, so all right. So you might hear someone or see someone doing. Right? So when somebody does. Okay. Now I want somebody else.
like that. And all together, it could maybe, possibly, sound something like. Cool. All right. So we got that one. So, Miss Ineida. So, before you do anything, can you go to the second video real quick? That's the one that's due in 2 minutes, yes. All right. So before we do that, hold on. Back. So are we queued up to 2? Okay, close enough. All right. So there's a place when someone will say dakutori. Dakutori. All those things. They just that means to like really give it some intensity with hips. Yes? Okay. And you can correct me if I'm wrong. All right. So what I want you to play that real quick. Just a little bit of that. And the music is going to cut out for a second, and then you're just going to hear. Thank you. Watching. All right, that's good. Okay, so. Rapika is.
So you start the kutoro while the song's going, but when the
It
part
gets intensified, that's right.
Rapikatorno.
Rapikatori, which means what? To get.
That's when you get very intense.
Really intense. Okay, so we're good. You're gonna be my. Can you be my batucadera? Inês is gonna be my batucadera.
Estar no corpo.
Não vai entender.
Oi.
I know, right?
Vou pôr ele para cuidar para entender.
Dos no Catarina.
Okay. Okay, so.
Olha, você tá.
Huh? I am. But all right. I want to make sure that I can because if you do it too fast, I'm not going to be able to do it. So. All right. So let's start it. We're going to start this nice and easy. Someone got it. Someone got it. Keep going. Who can sing?
Good dance. He's a good dancer, I think. Menina vai nessa coxa. Menina vai nessa coxa.
Okay, so I'm gonna play 2 seconds of something. So, go to the next video, please, real quick. The next one. So, I need some Poderozas up here. I have you. I have. Oh no. Not yet. We're gonna get to it in only 2 seconds. Huh? We're not? How come?
It's okay.
I'm not trying to go home.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay, it's okay.
No, we can, no.
We're
Okay.
enjoying this.
Oh, we need to make it, yeah.
Can you leave your
Yeah. Oh my. Okay, so great. So go. Come on, stop here. You match her? I want you to get it. So where's my Poderozas?
Got one? You got two?
Anybody else? Come on, Ruby. Come on, Ruby. Come on, I have plenty of. Can we get this a little louder? Come on, Aminah.
Ñogin dirando cero, hey, lindo mambo samana apoyar. Então dando saio, exclamava tu custa na moda. Ñogin dirando cero, hey, lindo mambo samana apoyar. Então dando saio, exclamava tu custa na moda. Para o mané convidam festa casamento. E se para encontros convidam batizar, na codelinho nga chegin na rubera. Para tu cadeira estar em fica torno com chavete. Para o mané convidam festa casamento. E se para encontros convidam batizar, na codelinho nga chegin na rubera. Para tu cadeira estar em fica torno com chavete. Ako mali mala ganyan flanana mas. Amiga mo llamaba tu custa na mora. Ako mali mala ganyan flanana mas. Amiga mo llamaba tu custa na mora. Primeiro badirio, esposa nishi baixo. E mora assim que aguenta toma panorama assim. Primeiro badirio, esposa nishi baixo. E mora assim que aguenta toma panorama assim. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. Ñogin dirando cero, hey, leño mamma somma apoiar. Então dando sério, exclamava tu custa na moda. Ñogin dirando cero, hey, leño mamma somma apoiar. Então canto saio, exclamava tudo na moda. Para o manelas convidam festa casamento. Fiz barincongas convidam batizar, na cotelinho lá cheguentes na rubera. Para tu cadeira sarà fica torno com chavete. Para o manelas convidam festa casamento. Fiz barincongas convidam batizar, na cotelinho lá cheguentes na rubera. Para tu cadeira sarà fica torno com chavete. Mio comare dice mola che non splanare mas. A mia non chiamava tu custa na moda. Mio comare dice mola che non splanare mas. A mia non chiamava tu custa na moda. Primeiro badirio, sposa nishi baixo. E mora assim que aguenta mama panorama assim. Primeiro badirio, sposa nishi baixo. E mora assim que aguenta mama panorama assim. Oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah, yeah.
Let's hear it for Aminah. And Miss Ruby. So, I think we need to hear this. Come on, I know, come on. So I'm gonna turn this over. It won't be long, right? It won't be long. Yeah, it's okay. No?
I just wanted to hear a little bit more content on the feminism and the connection to the two.
Miss Aminah. I'm gonna pass the microphone to Miss Aminah.
Okay, I know we're short on time, so I'll try to be really, really quick. But so one of the ethnomusicologists that has influenced Candida's work and my work is Bill Banfield, who is a retired Berkeley professor. He's written so many books and articles about Black music traditions, and one of the things that he talks about is the griot, right? Griot, G-R-I-O, is widely known, as a storyteller, right? But in terms of African history, you had to be born into a certain family to be a griot. And griots typically go through so much training to keep generations of history in memory and to be able to tell that history either through music or through spoken word. And my opinion is that we can look at the women who practice Batuku, people like Nasiagomi, as griots in Cabo Verde, because they hold so much knowledge of culture, whether it's traditional healing, food recipes, traditions that have to do with food preparation, work, taking care of children, you name it, right? They have it all here. And then through Batuk, they're able to be, like I said moments ago, the center of that tradition. They're the ones usually that's narrating. I mean, there are men who also do it and other genders, but historically, it's a space that is for us, right? Nos con nos. And women support one another in that space. They tell stories in that space. They give advice in that space, right? Finason represents all of those things. It could be telling jokes. It could be telling stories. It could be also passing on wisdom. But in that moment that woman is up there, commanding the stage and being the center of that tradition, even though she may not use that word feminismo, it is basically a powerful act. It's an act where the woman is in the center of is in power. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying that. I think because Batuk has a way of being very popular where people just see it as, a beautiful woman dancing and moving her hips, but there's this wonderful story behind the music and the dance that, should be shared.
And I thank you for asking the question. And the other thing I want to say is that, there's aspects of Capeverdean culture that we take for granted, those of us who are from Cape Verde or who are Capeverdean, like listening to our elders, right? Honoring our elders, and being matriarchal for the most part, right? A lot of us trace our family through a female ancestor.
But in the context of the United States, that's very different because it's mostly patriarchal, right? So we as in women, but also we as in Capeverdeans, we have a well to draw from, that is very powerful that other people might not have. That's just my opinion. But when you tap into Batuku, you tap into that well, right? I'm using the image of a well where you go get water. In this well, you gain some power, some strength, right? And you gain some freedom, especially if you think about the context of slavery, where every aspect of our bodies were controlled. Being engaged in the dance that goes along with Batuku it's freedom, right? So I don't know if that makes sense. So,
não, pode fazer uma pergunta, mas só sem ler ninguém, sem ensinar. Sim. Ok. Quando está a dizer Batuque, fomos Cabo Verde, ok. Mas é primeiro saber como Cabo Verde é dividido, tem 10 ilhas. Ao dizer Cabo Verde, vou dizer Cabo Verde inteiro. Mas cada ilha tem sua tradição, tem sua cultura. A mim, por exemplo, bem conche, Batuque, Tabanca, quando barco com meu marido para a praia. Porque nós no São Vicente nunca ouvimos música, nunca se dança. Por isso, não te perguntar, que maneira que não pode saber isso? Ok, obrigada.
This is so important. The question was about where Batuque is from and where it's located, because Cape Verde, we know, has 10 islands. And I'm so glad that you said that, because it is particular to Santiago. And so that's very important to say. And then when it goes into the diaspora, it takes on another life, because, we all are introduced to these traditions through mixing and traveling and just getting to know each other's traditions. I don't know if that answers. And if anybody else wants to jump in and share, please do. Ineida, yes.
So, but for what I know, I'm just gonna share I'm not a professional in Batuque. Lily. So, Batuque is the dance of resistance. I did my whole senior project on Batuque. I love dance Batuque. I love teaching Batuque. And so when you start, to answer your question first, so Batuque is particular from Praia, Santiago, and Maio are the two main islands that. Yes, but in the roots, that's where they came, of course, all the motherland. But in Cape Verde, for those that know, we have the 9 islands. Each island, they have their own dances there. Like I learned Talaya Basha just recently. It's not something I knew before, but because my love for dancing history, that's when I learned it. But to answer your question, Batuque is mostly practice in Santiago and Maio, but now all the islands. It's not because it's just belong to that island, but all the island. When I teach here, everybody's welcome, and I have amazing dancers for Brava, and I always enjoy doing. And one thing I always start when I teach Batuque, if you see in one of the videos that Candida show, the semicircle, the terreiro, that's when you start the whole connection. And you can start with what was the word you used? The rhythm. You can start with ciabatta, but the ciabatta has the pam-pam, cavalaria, depois tem repica. So all this that makes the sound that Candida was showing in the tumba, djembe, whatever you want to call it, the tambor, and the drum, and all this, each of them have their own beat. Pam-pam goes slow, 1, 1, 1, 1. Cavalaria is like the horse, that's the name of it. So it sounds like the riding of the horse, and it's calling in most of it. So Batuque was called the forbidden dance because they thought it was too savage. It was too Africanized, too rooted, and too sometimes even very sensual. And now it's one of the most traditional, if you want to really connect us to motherland, and that's one of the dances that really brings us, not discarding any other dance, not minimizing any other dance on islands, but Batuk and Funana, it's one of the ones that bring us really close to the rooted where it came. Because we talk about Yoruba and all the dance. You go to Brazil, you'll find them umbigada, which is similar to Batuk that we dance. You go to Mali, they dance, it's Pacheba, it's all happening in here. And Batuk, Pelapunachon means your feet, it's grounded. And that's where all this, the word, deaf connection, has nothing written. Nyanasia Gomi didn't know how to write or read much, but she was a fount of treasury. And that's how I learned. I sat down and listened to my grandmother, my great-grandmother. So every place I go, like you're saying, connect to who we are. When I graduated, I was a commencement speaker. I introduced myself. My name is Ineida, daughter of Ermelinda, daughter of Amelia, daughter of Joanna, and daughter of Anna. I call my foremothers because I am who I am today. I am so connected to my grounds because my great-grandmother. She died when I was 20, but everything I know about Batuk, about Cimenteira, about Simia, Koji, everything came from my great-grandmother. So always when I speak, I honor them by mentioning and calling their names.
Thank you.
Batu, Fananá, from Cabo Verde. Pô, Cabo Verde, Cabo Verde tem 10 ilhas. Uma ilha que não é habitada, que é Santa Luzia. Portanto, quando vocês expressar, vocês dizer Cabo Verde, vocês dizer from Santiago. Porque cada ilha tem essa dança. Tem contradança, tem mazurca. É rabolo. Não dá. Então não tem que especificar, cada ilha tem de ser. Essa é que não devemos explicar. Para toda a gente poder saber. Porque a mim está ficando essa confusão, está dizendo, mas que maneira? A mim nunca sabia dança. Não é? Sem ofender ninguém, mas é assim que não tem que perguntar e saber. Ok? Obrigada.
Yes, Claire. So I apologize. I know that we're way over our time. The last part of the workshop was going to be a discussion about Madonna's Batuka. Is everybody familiar with that? Yeah. So we can watch the video while it's playing. I do have a copy of an article that I wrote about it. If you're interested, you can have a copy. And we'll just wrap up with any last comments or ideas, opinions about the Madonna version of our tradition.
I'm sorry, did I say that out loud? Okay, then I'm definitely gonna read it.
You know what? We might be
Can you get the volume?
I can't get the volume to the speaker.
Is it Spencer? Can you
It's here. It's in the.
Okay. Coming out.
Let me get my one space,
Or you can let it play without the volume. So after seeing Ineida, for example, right, looking at this video, what comes to mind? What are you thinking?
It doesn't relate.
Disconnected?
Yeah. Weird. The lyrics don't have anything to do with anything.
Very weird, right? So I was very fortunate. In 2019, I was on a trip. I went on a trip to Cabo Verdean with, I don't even know where the mic is. I helped, I went on a trip to Cabo Verdean with the former mayor of Boston, Marty Walsh, and a group of about 45 people. And we went to Cabo Verdean to learn about various aspects of the history and culture. And we went to Cidade Velha, and we took part in and witnessed a batuque performance by a traditional group of batucadeiras. And then when I came back, I saw this video, and I was so concerned, to put it nicely. So I did some research because I was concerned about whether or not this was cultural appropriation. And I didn't think that the video, even though a lot of people thought it was great because it introduced Batuque to the world, I didn't know if people would really get the history by watching the video. So the article that you have, if you took a copy, is my essay about this video. And the basic argument is that Madonna has always borrowed from Black music. Madonna has always studied African music. She studied Cesaria first. Her and Cesaria actually became friends.
And she loves our music. At the time that this was made, she was living in Lisbon. And the history that I learned was that part of the idea for this came from a Capeverdean musician, Dino de Santiago, and his wife, who's also a musician. So it was a collaboration. It was a collaboration with Capeverdeans, right, with Capeverdeanos. And, you know, it is what it is. But for me, we have to pay tribute to the originals, the African women, the Black women, and the title says the Black women are the blueprint. So the original is people like Ineda.